scholarships. Now, the second category of scholarship that you should be considering are those that come from research institutions. And then there is this other category of scholarships that come from some form of organization, maybe from your country, maybe from, outside of your country. But there are some institutions that will actually sponsor PhD studies. Like the organization that's sponsoring my own PhD is not my university, but I know that the university in which I'm studying have got several sponsored PhD options. And as we go through the conversation, I'm going to be sharing some websites that you can actually head on to look for PhD scholarships in different parts of the world, and then you'll be able to find them, those things. Now, there are a couple of documents you need as somebody looking for a PhD. But let me also mention that there are countries where PhDs are free. So if you go to a country like Germany, in any of the public institutions in Germany, I don't know any of them that charges tuition for PhDs. If you go to a country, and I think there is just no reason for which hello, can we all hear me? All right, so we are discussing scholarships today, and specifically PhD scholarship options for students intending to go to different countries of the world. And we'll see how it goes, how many people are able to join, and we'll see the pace at which we go. But if you can hear me, just please confirm in the comment section that you can hear me, and we will take it up from there. Let me know in the comment section if you can hear me just now, and we will get started as soon as possible. So we are discussing as someone who is looking for a PhD scholarship. There are so many scholarships at the level of a PhD, and I think there is just no reason for which anyone should actually be even paying for a PhD course, because there are so many scholarship options. There are so much of these scholarships that you can consider, you can apply for, you can actually take advantage of. So please confirm in the comment section that you can hear me, and then let's start moving straight into the subject for the day. There is no point wasting time when we can go straight to the point. Please let me know in the comment section. Can you hear me? And then we will be making a very good start. Can we all hear? All right. So PhD scholarships. I believe at this point that everyone following this page knows that there are two ways in which you can do a PhD. The first option is to follow the traditional method of doing degree, and then you go on to a PhD. Now, the second option is you complete a bachelor's degree, and then you apply for what is called a direct PhD. In that case, you are more like jumping your master's degree and then moving straight to a PhD. In that situation, and if you will consider that option, then you need a very good grade at your bachelor's. There are a couple of other things you can do, which we've discussed before, to improve your chances of getting a direct PhD. One of that is you have to actually, as much as possible, get yourself to publish a research paper. Because by the time you have a research paper published as a student, you will be in a very good position and in very good contention for PhD programs wherever they are, whichever part of the world, and all classes of PhDs that you can actually consider. And I want to lay emphasis on this at this very beginning because I want to be sure that all the people who have just done their bachelor's and have the passion for a PhD, have got some sound background in research, can actually have the understanding that they can move on to a PhD directly. In many countries of the world, I know that in the United Kingdom is done. And then I know a couple of people who finished their bachelor's in Nigeria and moved straight to the USA for PhD program. So this is something that works. At least I can confirm that it works in the UK, can confirm it works in the US. I also know that it works in a certain school in Saudi Arabia. The school is called KAUST, and we are going to talk more about that school in the process of this conversation. The full meaning is King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. I'm going to mention it again, and if I do forget to mention it, someone should remind me in the comment section, because that school is actually a very good place for research, and the school is, they've got very good funding for people who are doing their research. Now, in that university also, you've got options for doing your master's only, and then you've got the other option for doing your master's degree and then a PhD at the same time, right? So the two options for a PhD. And now that we have that clarified, let's begin to delve into the scholarship opportunities and the reasons for which I think that nobody should actually pay for a PhD. At the point of a PhD, you've done so much. You've paid a lot during your secondary school, during your bachelor's degree, during your master's degree. At the point of a PhD, I think you shouldn't be paying. Myself wouldn't pay for a PhD because there are just so many options. Not because the degree is not worth paying for, but because there are so many options that are willing to sponsor you. Right? Now, let's get started. The first category of scholarships every student intending to go for a PhD should be considering is what is called the graduate assistantship scholarships. Now, the second category of scholarship that you should be considering are those that come from research institutions. And then there is this other category of scholarships that come from some form of organization, maybe from your country, maybe from, outside of your country. But there are some institutions that will actually sponsor PhD studies. Like the organization that's sponsoring my own PhD is not my university, but I know that the university in which I'm studying have got several sponsored PhD options. And as we go through the conversation, I'm going to be sharing some websites that you can actually head on to look for PhD scholarships in different parts of the world, and then you'll be able to find them, those things. Now, there are a couple of documents you need as somebody looking for a PhD. But let me also mention that there are countries where PhDs are free. So if you go to a country like Germany, in any of the public institutions in Germany, I don't know any of them that charges tuition for PhDs. If you go to a country like Norway, or you go to a country like Austria, you go to a country like Finland, in these countries you will find your PhD completely free of charge. The tuition is free. Of course, there's a way it runs in some countries where you have to pay a certain amount of money, in some places between 100 to 300 and something euros in an academic year, or maybe a semester, to cover for the cost of running your education in terms of all the services provided by the student union, maybe like printing services, like photocopying services, maybe like maintaining your ID cards and all of those kind of things. But you are not charged a tuition like what is obtainable in some other countries. So if you are looking for a PhD and you want a country where you get to, and once you have an admission into any of the public institutions in those countries, your your scholarship is, your fee and your tuition is completely covered, you should be looking at Germany, you should be looking at Finland, you should be looking at Austria, you should be looking at Norway, you should also be looking at Czech Republic. I think in Lithuania it's something similar as well. But apart from these countries within Europe where PhDs are free of charge, there are lots of scholarships that will fund your PhDs, even in the countries where tuition is charged, like scholarships that will fund your stay in the United Kingdom for a PhD, scholarships that will fund your study in the United States of America for a PhD, scholarships that will fund your studies in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand, all of the places where tuition would normally be charged. You've got scholarship options that will cover all of those places. And those are the things we will consider in details just right now. So we've got the two types of PhDs that are available, the direct PhDs and the ones that will require you to have completed your master's degree. We've also talked about the various options, the various countries where you can get your PhD tuition free. Now, what to do with the information is to go into those countries, dig out the schools that are actually offering your course. And then by the time you dig out the schools that are offering your course, the next thing is the documentations and all the things that are required. Now, let me also mention that when you come to the point of a PhD, there are two categories of things that you should be considering. And once I'm done with this, it will lead me to a conversation about what's called multidiscipline or interdisciplinary research, because at the point of a PhD, most research will go on that level. But before that, let's think of the PhDs that are available. There are certain PhD scholarships you will apply for, and you will be required to write your own research proposal. When I was applying for the scholarship that's funding my study, by the way, it's called a PTDF and is currently open. Unfortunately, it's just for Nigerian citizens. But the time we were applying for that scholarship, we had to write a research proposal. We had to complete a research proposal, submit that research proposal to the organization that was going to provide us funding, and then go through an interview process to actually defend that research proposal before a panel of academicians and a panel of people from that organization. And then at the point of finishing that, you now go back to your institution that you would want to study in, also go through a process of an interview to be able to prove to them that you got a good knowledge of what you are doing or what you intend to do, and then to convince the people as well that in addition to the knowledge, you are well motivated and you've got the passion that's going to drive you through a PhD, because a PhD is actually different from all you know about master's degrees. It's completely different from what you did in your bachelor's. So in your bachelor's, you could be an intelligent person, and then on the basis of being intelligent and smart, you will actually do very well. At the point of a PhD, you may be smart, but struggle with a PhD, because at some point is needing you to think for yourself. You're not studying what somebody else has told you to study. You are designing your own studies, and then you are having to go through a motivation process or a remotivation process within yourself to be able to push that study through to a good conclusion. By the way, this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. If just in case you are meeting us for the very first time, we do this kind of sessions very often. We've done one for bachelor's degree students. We've done one for master's degree students. And then today we are looking at PhD options. And I think subsequent videos will be for people who are looking for postdoctorate research opportunities in different countries of the world. So if you are with me at this point, I would encourage you to share this video across to your own network. Just hit the share button there. It wouldn't stop you from continuing to watch the video. It's not going to terminate your presence here. Just hit that share button so that your own friends and your colleagues can also benefit from this. And we do a lot of these kind of things from here. If this is your first time seeing us, welcome on board, and then join us as we sail on. So there are those kind of scholarships where you need to write your own research proposal, and then there are certain other scholarships which is very common with the research assistantships or the graduate assistantships, where you actually do not need to write a research proposal by yourself. The reason you don't need to write a research proposal by yourself is because the lecturer or the supervisor, the professor, the associate professor, or the institution that's funding that research within that school has actually got a research that they are interested in. So sometimes a company has got an interest in maybe making business out of recycling of a certain product, and then they are looking for a professor within a particular school that has got the facilities to run research in that area. And then when they get to that school, what they do is they go into a collaboration with the school, and then a professor in the school have to bring in a student. But the student who is coming is not coming to do his own research. The student is coming in to do a research that's already funded by the institution and already defined by that organization. So if they want to understand maybe the recycling process of, let's say, wind turbines, they would have described it in the scholarship advert or in the call for PhD applications. And once they have that defined completely, the student does not really come to present his own research proposal. In that situation, what the student is coming to do is to defend the fact that he has good understanding of that research area, of that topic, and he has got all it takes, the skills, the attitude, and the knowledge to be able to deliver effectively if he's hired into that research. Right? We can start dropping our questions in the comment section. I will get back to those questions as we proceed in the discussion today. Drop your questions in the comment section if you've got any. If you don't mind, you can also let me know where you're joining from. If you've joined us all the way from Malawi or all the way from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Sierra Leone, from Indonesia, from Egypt, just anywhere, any part of the world, please drop a message in the comment section. I will be glad to know where you have joined us from. So these are the types of PhDs that you can have, and these are the kind of researches that you may have. So depending on what you have, your attitude or your approach to winning that scholarship actually begins to differ. It begins to shift, because in some cases you have to start from the scratch and develop your own research proposal. In some other cases, you do not have to start from the scratch, because the scratch and the groundwork has already been done for you. And this will cut across different institutions. Most research assistantships, most graduate research assistantships will actually come in the form of a professor who already has a research area he's planning to go into. Now, what you need to do is to align your own research interest with the person's research interest. If you're able to do that and then able to prove to that person that you've got the right knowledge, the right skills that will support the person's research, then you start a very good chance of winning the scholarships. Now, let's talk about a few things about places that you can find these scholarships. Now, if you look at certain countries, let's start from Europe, because again, I'm in Europe, I stay in the United Kingdom. So let's start from Europe and then launch out to Australia, launch out to North America, and then discuss all of these. If you are looking for a scholarship in Europe for your PhD, coming to the United Kingdom first, you will look at a website that's called jobs.ac.uk. jobs.ac.uk. I will not get tired of mentioning that website to us. If you go to that website any time of the year, you're going to see scholarships from different institutions from the United Kingdom. In fact, they have a section of that website that is dedicated completely to PhD scholarship opportunities. In the United Kingdom, of course, they wouldn't call it scholarship. Most of them might call them studentships. But whether or not it's called studentship or it's called scholarship, the game is the same. It's just the same thing. It's the same topic. It's the same offer, that you will be getting your tuition paid and then some form of stipend paid to you. And that is what you will have. In the UK, very often all the scholarship funding, all the stipend you get as a scholarship student is usually tax-free. So if your scholarship has made an advert that you will be paid let's say you go to jobs.ac.uk and then you find that University College London or Robert Gordon University is offering a scholarship or a studentship, and then they've made a promise to pay, let's say, £18,000 for the year. That £18,000 comes out from the university or from the government, and then it comes to your account without being taxed. You don't pay any income tax on that. Almost all the scholarships I know of in the UK are tax-free. So students do not pay tax on their scholarship funding. However, if you choose to work and do like extracurricular work, go to do some part-time jobs, then depending on the amount of money you earn from those part-time jobs, you may actually have to pay some tax on those income. Now, stretching out to other parts of Europe, you want to go to a website that's called findscholarships.com. Findscholarship.com. If you go to that findscholarship.com, findphds.com. It's not find scholarship. Apologies for that. Find PhD. So you go to that website, you will see PhD scholarships from different parts of Europe, from practically every part of Europe. You will be able to see some scholarships at the PhD level on that website. So these are the kind of places you want to start familiarizing yourself with. These are like general websites where scholarships are collated together and posted by different people, different faculty members, different institutions, different professors, and different associate professors. Now, if you want to start being specific, let's say you've got a particular institution within the UK or within Europe that's of interest to you. You want to go to, let's say, University of Aberdeen or University of Edinburgh. Now, what you do is you can also go to the website of that university, and by the time you trace all the lecturers in the place, or you get to your department or your faculty of interest, you will also be able to see the scholarships that they've got, the funding they've got, and all the opportunities they've got under different supervisors, the research areas that are active and ongoing, the planned research areas and when they're about to start, and all of those kind of information. You will find them and you will then be able to apply. Now, moving on to places like Australia. I did a video recently where I dedicated it to just Australia, because Australia, this is like the best season to actually win a scholarship to Australia. Australia is open at the moment, and several institutions, several universities are opening up their portals and calling for applications. And Australia is one place where a school can give out lots of scholarships in one season. So you go to maybe like University of Melbourne, you go to any other Adelaide or whatever the name of the city is called, but you go to any of those universities, you will find lots of scholarship calls to come to that institution. Now, there is a similar approach happens in the United States of America. You can go to the website of any school, University of Texas at Austin. You can go to any school in the United States, and you will see all these scholarship options that the university has got on their website, and then you can apply. Right? I hope some of these questions are not ones I need to respond to immediately. So, do all the PhD scholarships cater for dependents? Okay, so we'll come to that in the next section of this video. So, we have all of these scholarships and all of these institutions that are offering scholarships. Now, the question is, how do you win these scholarships? If all these scholarships are available, how do you win? If all these scholarships are available, why is it that so many people are still struggling to find scholarship opportunities at the level of their PhDs? I'm going to show us 7 things that can help us, and some of the things that you may need to change as a person if you are really interested in winning scholarships. Now, this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. If you've not shared the video, please hit the share button. Let me sip some water and then we continue. Academy of Scholarships and Transitions, and we're discussing PhD scholarship options. Do stay with me. All right. So, I hope you've just done that, shared the video. Thank you so much if you've done that. If you haven't done it, please just hit that share button. I will really appreciate it if you do. In fact, by the way, I will also be sharing it on my personal profile. Now, if you have got, or if we've got all these scholarship opportunities at the level of a PhD, why is it that people are still struggling to win PhD scholarships for their studies? There are a couple of things, and these things I'm going to say now are very important. You need to pay very good attention to them. You see, at the level of a PhD, there is a concept that's called interdisciplinary studies, right? I repeat, interdisciplinary studies. Because, in fact, when I was coming to the UK, for instance, I thought that I would actually be able to find like a department of, let's say, a department of petroleum and gas engineering under which I was going to do my PhD. But at the level of a PhD in this particular school where I'm studying, what they just have is a school of engineering, right? And almost everybody who has got something to do with engineering comes under that particular place. And because of the way the faculties are designed, you are basically going to have to do something that is connected here to petroleum engineering, connected on this end to materials engineering, connected on the other end maybe to computing and maybe computer science, some form of programming and some form of AI integration, and all of those kind of things. So at the end, you find that even though your background is, let's say, mechanical engineering, your PhD research is going to drive you through a pathway that has like mechanical engineering, has some integration of fluid dynamics or fluid mechanics, has some integration of something maybe like in chemical engineering, and all of these things are integrated to give you the PhD that you are looking to gain. In fact, in some cases, the PhD will go as far as touching on policies and touching on maybe like economic modelings and all of those kind of things. And these are things you want to understand ahead of time. Now, why am I emphasizing this? The reason I lay emphasis on this is because some persons are stuck on the notion that they must have a PhD in like chemical engineering because their background or their master's degree was in chemical engineering. Some persons want to are stuck on trying to get a PhD in, let's say, education because their background was education. Some people are stuck on trying to get a PhD in, let's say, philosophy because their bachelor's was in philosophy. But the point is, if you have done like a master's degree in something, what you need to start understanding or what you need to start considering at the point of a PhD is the fact that when you are doing a PhD, your PhD can be something where your previous knowledge is applicable. It's not like a continuation of your previous knowledge. It's more like an application of the knowledge you've got. So somebody who has done like physics and astronomy, and the person is fixed on finding a scholarship in physics and astronomy, may not find it, but the person may find an application of quantum physics or an application of maybe physics somewhere in photovoltaic cells, and that research is domiciled somewhere in the faculty of engineering. And then again, at that point, what most of the supervisors and what most of the professors are looking for is not whether or not you've done an exact same thing in your bachelor's or in your master's. What they're looking for is what do you have that's relevant to this research? What do you have that's going to support this research and help this research to come to make progress? If you've got all it takes in terms of skills and you've developed yourself in terms of knowledge to a point where you are relevant to that research group, where your relevance to that research team can be proven, then the supervisor is not going to discount your application or to throw away your application because your background is physics. In fact, certain times the professors are even looking for someone who has got like a physical science background because some aspects of their engineering research are actually very much embedded or built upon the theories of those physical science courses. And because of that, they are open to having people from these various backgrounds to come into their research group. Now, again, the other reason I'm emphasizing the concept of interdisciplinary studies is because PhD fundings are, they are sort of time bound. The way the money moves is dependent on the time. So you may have finished your bachelor's degree at a point when when within your field money was going into a certain sector of your field. And because money was dumping or being pumped into that area, many people who applied for PhDs in that field were able to get the PhDs. And some other persons who applied for some of the more conventional aspects of that course wouldn't get a PhD sponsorship because there's no money going into it. For people in oil and gas engineering, one of those areas that doesn't seem to have so much funding at the moment is drilling. If you are someone in oil and gas and you are looking for a scholarship from a school or from some kind of organization, except maybe like national kind of scholarships, you may struggle significantly to get any funded project within drilling, maybe within well completions, except you are doing like equipment side of things, or maybe like doing, let's say, predictive maintenance kind of thing. If you are just looking at drilling in terms of wellbore stability and all of those kind of things, you may not be able to actually source funding very easily. Now, what do? You want to find some of the other areas where your knowledge is easily applicable. And by finding those areas, you will then be able to launch out and expand into those places, explore the opportunities that are there, and then you may be able to win yourself a scholarship. My PhD studies is mostly a materials engineering course, but being applied to the oil and gas industry, right? Even though my background has been completely oil and gas, everything just within the oil and gas sector. But there are other options where you can actually take your knowledge of that field you have, find the way it applies to an area that's got some funding, got some opportunities for funding, then repackage yourself and repackage your application documents to suit into that. And when you do that, you will be fishing in, within a wider zone of waters, and that will actually be very helpful to you. So don't stay stuck on, I've studied education. Maybe I want to just study education at my master's degree. You may have studied education, and at this point, the area you find like research funding might be somewhere where an organization is trying to study the impact of retraining their staff, on efficiency. That's not typical. Maybe that's not something that is called education in quotes, but it might be a way of improving organizational efficiency. You may find that kind of research maybe within the faculty of within a business school, because it's mostly related to a business, but that doesn't mean that someone who has got a background in education doesn't qualify to apply for it. You actually are maybe the best candidate to apply for those kind of scholarships if you know how to package yourself. Now, with all of these understanding, let's begin to get into the details of how to package your PhD application. How to package your PhD application. Now, let's say, for instance, that you are applying for a PhD that requires you to write a research proposal. What should actually go into that? Any ideas? If you know what should go into a research proposal in the comment section, please just let me know that a research proposal should contain this, or a research proposal should contain that, or shouldn't contain this, or shouldn't contain that. Do you have any ideas of what goes into a research proposal? Let me know in the comment section if you have an idea. And while you're doing that, let me continue with the options that do not require research proposals. Now, if you are applying for a scholarship that does not require you to send out a research proposal, that's the one we've already discussed. You are trying to now package yourself as the person who fits the most into the advertised scholarship. So the scholarship advert has said that they are looking for, or maybe the title of the scholarship is, let's say, maybe, which one now? I think technical things keep coming to my head. So let's use a technical example. Let's say that you are doing a study, or you found a study on hydrogen manufacturing or hydrogen generation from, let's say, some form of rocks. And that's the scholarship that's on offer. And you are someone who has got a background in geology. And most of the research in hydrogen are actually not looking for anybody who has got a background in hydrogen, because it's a very new area. It's like it's like a very green field that many people are coming into. I don't know any university that does hydrogen as a course in bachelor's degree or master's degree. I don't know any department of hydrogen like we know the departments of petroleum engineering or mechanical engineering or education. But at the level of a PhD, there are so many options for scholarships and funded opportunities in hydrogen studies. Now, if you are looking for one of those kind of scholarships and you find that somebody is trying to do a research on generating hydrogen from maybe like rocks, as just one professor is one group is trying to do in the United States at the moment, and your background is geology, what do you do? Do you run away? Or is there a way you can actually package yourself in such form that you can present yourself as the best candidate for that? So you are somebody from geology. Let's say you've taken a course on like rock chemistry. You've studied rocks to a very large extent. You know the nature of rocks. You know the composition of rocks. You know what is involved in a rock. All the things that are contained in a rock that can be actually transformed, or maybe through catalytic processes or through anything to generate hydrogen. You're coming to apply for that scholarship with that understanding, and you're approaching it from that position of, yes, you know this thing. You've not studied hydrogen, but you understand the composition of rocks, and you understand the limitations of rocks. You understand maybe the processes of rock formation or mineral formation. You know the impact of temperature. You know the impact of pressure on rocks underground. And then this person is talking about generating hydrogen from some of those underground rocks. Your position is, how do you convince the person that you're actually the best candidate for this? They're going to give you an opportunity to write an essay that helps you explain those things. They're also going to let you send them a CV, and they're going to let you send across all your other documentations, and then you will be also needing to send across your research publications if you've got any. Right? And these are basically the components of the documents you will need to be able to apply for a PhD study and for a PhD degree. So, or let's say for a PhD study, or we call it for a PhD scholarship. If you have got all of those kind of things intact, the essay is the place you make the person convinced. That's the place you sell yourself. That's the place you discuss why you are the best candidate for this particular opportunity. You want to showcase your skills. You want to showcase your existing knowledge. You want to showcase your passion and your understanding of that particular research that the person is embarking on. By the time you've been able to do all of this and then conclude with, yes, you believe that with all of this, you are able to actually contribute significantly to this research, or you actually will do well on this particular research, you find that you would have created an opportunity for yourself to actually go through an interview process. And then at the point of that interview process, you can then make further defense for yourself and make further statements about your case and justify your application the more. So the question is, you want to get, the first task is get yourself through the door of an interview, because every scholarship, every PhD scholarship opportunity that I know of, every single one that I have applied for in my own lifetime, basically all of them will have you go through an interview process with the team that will be supervising you. Because again, when you apply for a PhD, you need a supervisor. It's not like a master's degree where you can just come apply and you have a supervisor guaranteed within the department at the point of doing your thesis. At the level of a PhD, you need to actually secure the confirmation of a potential supervisor that the person can supervise the project, and that person will want to interview you to confirm that you are the best fit, or that the research you are proposing is actually something that the person can supervise. So regardless of the fact of whether you are applying for a scholarship that needs you to develop your own proposal, or you're applying for a scholarship where the proposal is already developed, you will still have to go through an interview process with maybe like 2 persons from that faculty, most times your first supervisor and your potential second supervisor, or sometimes the graduate school coordinator or the research coordinator for that department will also be part of that interview. You want to get yourself prepared enough. After you've submitted the right essay, the next thing that will help you when you're seeking PhD scholarships is to perfect your interview skills. To perfect your interview skills. A lot of people come to approach PhDs as or approach scholarships as scholarships. But it's a very competitive market, and I prefer to think of scholarship applications as job applications. So the dedication I'll give to a job is the same dedication I'll give to a scholarship application. The same dedication you should give to a job interview is the quality of dedication you want to give to a scholarship interview. In fact, sometimes you may actually even want to go the extra mile. The reason you want to go the extra mile is because if you are going to any of these developed countries, let's say you are going to the United States of America you are competing for a scholarship in the United States of America. You're most likely competing against people from India, against people from all the parts of Africa that you know, people from South Korea, people from, let's say, sometimes from Japan, sometimes from China. And because of this global audience of competitors, you want to give your best game to it. So you are looking at preparing yourself for interviews. There are people who struggle to do interviews, and there are people who struggle to sit before a camera and speak. If you have any of those struggles, I think there is a video I could recommend for us if there are people who would like to watch those kind of videos where you can how to improve your public speaking and how to overcome being shy when you are called upon to speak, how to develop that confidence to speak to an audience. If you would like to have a look at that video, you can put a message in the comment section and I'll drop the link to the video for you. But you need to develop your interview skills. You need to build up on the way you are able to get into an interview situation, how you are able to drive the conversation on that interview day. If you go into an interview and you let the professors be the main drivers of that interview, you may be actually driven to a point where your knowledge is insufficient. So at some point, you want to be you are not, of course, going there to drag or to argue with the people, but you want to be in a position of mastering how to navigate conversations and how to redirect conversation on towards the path that you actually have your competence in. And you can do this by maybe giving examples. Maybe you might need to dedicate something different, a different live session to interviews. But let me just say this. If you get into an interview situation, you can begin to reclaim, and this is, in fact, in almost every other form of conversation, you can begin to reclaim the ownership of a conversation just by asking questions, or sometimes by giving examples. If you start by asking questions on, let's say, somebody has begun to interview you, and in the process of answering that interview question, you are trying to anticipate what will the person say at the point where I drop this answer. If I start giving the answer to this question and I am done with the answer, what could be the next possible question that this person or this panel will throw at me? You can almost you can make a guess, but the way you want to re-navigate that conversation could be through an example you give in your answer. So if I know that I'm in an interview situation and somebody is going to, I want somebody to probe into my past or probe into my history, then I could start the answer of a question and then link it up to a situation that has happened in the past in my life. Something that I know that if the professor begins to probe further into, he or she will find maybe an attitude of resilience where I've been resilient to overcome something. The person will find an attitude or a situation where I've been in a tight corner and then I was able to learn something within a very short time. Or a situation where I've had challenges in the past, but I was able to persist and overcome those challenges and achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. I can bring up something that's going to trigger a conversation around that kind of thing. Because at the level of a PhD, a professor wants to see somebody who is determined, somebody who is intelligent, but beyond intelligence, somebody who has got a passion and the drive to overcome things. In fact, there's a professor in my university here. He comes from Palestine. And I remember him giving us an example. He said many years ago when he was looking for a PhD, I think in England, during his interview, it was, I think those were the beginning days, the early days of machine learning and artificial intelligence. So he was being asked, and he said, well, that all his life he has lived to overcome tough things. You know, coming from Palestine, he has seen a lot of tough situations. He has seen a lot of challenging situations in his life, and he's just grown to learn how to overcome things. And I think that answer was the only thing that actually got him the scholarship. That was the distinguishing factor between himself and most of the other applicants. He won that scholarship, went on to do it. Today, he's a professor in that field of machine learning, one of maybe the strongest authorities in machine learning, maybe within Aberdeen within Aberdeen. He should be one of the strongest voices or one of the strongest persons in machine learning, a professor in that field. Right? So you want to develop your ability to go through interviews. You don't want to go through an interview and they ask you, tell me about yourself, and you mention your name and the country you're coming from. That's not like about yourself. There is more to you. There is more that defines you than what your name is. There is more that defines you than what your country of origin is. And by the time you're able to develop that, in addition to submitting the right kind of essay and the right kind of statement of motivation and the right proposals, you will be closer to a PhD scholarship than you can imagine. Now, let's look at the other ones. I mentioned that if you know what should go into a PhD research proposal, you should drop them in the comment section. Let me see what people have dropped here, and then we can maybe make conversations on that. So problem statement, objective, methodology. That's from Grace. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing that. And Millie has just mentioned that interdisciplinary is way to go. I'm going on to try that on my next application. I wish I had gotten this information earlier. All the best, Millie. I wish you the very best. And I trust that you will get a scholarship not sooner than you actually expect it to happen. I know the amount of energy you are putting into this, and I wish you the very best. So, research proposal. If you are going to countries like Germany and most of these other countries where PhDs are free, you may find funding institutions that will require you to drop or to submit a research proposal. And the way it works is your research proposal should go through a faculty member in a particular or in the institution you are interested in going to. So if you're interested in going to, let's say, University of Munich, you want to find a professor in that place who is able to supervise or has the competence to supervise the project that you are proposing to study. And if you are going to study, let's say, what now? Maybe early childhood challenges, or maybe what now? The challenges of education in rural Africa or something like that. You want to go study that. Then you want to go to that University of Munich, and you want to find a professor who has got an experience in maybe Africa, or a professor who has got an experience in some part of rural Europe, or a professor who has got like some kind of capacity or demonstrated capacity in or in research addressing challenges of education or learning challenges. And then by the time you've got that person, you want to send out an email to the person containing, in that email, of course, you will attach your results, your transcripts, your statement of purpose or whatever. But most importantly, you want to attach that research proposal. And the research proposal now should contain details, sufficient details that lets the person get a good picture of where you're going to, because the person needs that good picture to be able to make a decision on, can I supervise this person? Have I got the right skills? Have I got the right knowledge? Have I got all it takes to be able to help this PhD student when the person comes under my supervision? If I've got all of those skills, if I've got all of those knowledge, then, and I've got some level of space, because sometimes they are choked up with just so many students, and then they can't take on more students at a particular time. But if they've got this opening and this space, then the person has seen all the details that your research is about. And that is why in your research proposal, you want to demonstrate a couple of things. The first part of it is you want to demonstrate that you have a knowledge of the state of research in that field. Because every PhD research is supposed to fill a gap in knowledge. Before you fill a gap in knowledge, you must identify that gap in knowledge. And how do you identify a gap in knowledge? You identify a gap in knowledge very well. Some people identify them by inspiration, but in the academia, that you identify something by inspiration does not really sell. You identify a gap in knowledge by doing what is called a literature review. So your research proposal should have a section for literature review. Now, this is not like a standard order where, like in a CV, you have your contact details, you have this, you have that. I'm just trying to give us a general scope first of what a PhD research proposal should contain. So you want to prove that you know you have sufficient knowledge in this area and you know the current state of research in that field. You achieve that through a research proposal. You want to identify the objectives and the aim of the research. In some research proposals, people write like aims and objectives, but I think the general experience in research is that, I don't know how many countries where this spreads across, but at least in the UK, I know that a research is supposed to be designed around a particular aim, but with multiple objectives. Your objectives can be 4, your objectives can be 5. If the objectives of your PhD research begins to spread more than 5 and begins to go like 7, 8, 10, you want to go back to it and cut it to scale, because you've got just like 3.5 years to complete your PhD, and you may not be able to you may not be able to actually solve 7 objectives of a PhD research within that period. So you want to have a general aim and an objective. The general aim is more around the research gap that you have discovered, the knowledge gap that you've discovered through your literature review. And your objective then is the first aspect that defines the methodology that you actually adopt for the research. So you have identified, you've proven that you know something about this area. You've also proven that you've gone through the literature, you've seen what is available, the state of research, and what needs to be filled up. You've identified that gap in knowledge, which now you reframe into an aim for your research. And then you've got like a set of objectives. I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that, I want to achieve that, I want to achieve the other one. And all of these things you've identified now will go on to define the methodology you are proposing for the research. Remember, this is a research proposal. This is not like if a cast in stone document. It's a proposal. You're going to refine it. You will find that some of the things you aimed to, you had objectives of achieving, you may not be able to achieve them. Your methodology might have to change a little bit depending on the country, because again, you are writing your methodology based on your understanding from your own country. You might get into that school and the reality becomes that they've got like an easier method. They've got like an easier approach to achieving the same objective, to achieving the same aim. Where that is the case, you want to now streamline, you want to modify, you want to like narrow down your research methodology to fit into the easier pathway that gives you the same kind of result. You may have proposed to do like experimental research, and then getting to the place, you find that because of equipment limitations, you may not be able to stretch your experiment to the point where you're able to cover all the things you wanted to cover. So at that point, you're having to go to a simulation, and you can modify your research proposal at that point to fit into running a simulation as your research. But the main important thing is the professor wants to see that you've thought through that process. You're not just saying, oh, I want a PhD and I don't know what to study in the PhD. I have no idea of what the state of research is. I don't even know what the gap in knowledge is. The professor wants to see that you've done your background work, you've done your research, and then at the point of completing your research, you've done some research work, you've read some things, and based on what you've read, you're making this proposal. And in addition to the proposal, you've got like a section defining what you propose to be the methodology. Will it be a quantitative research? Will it be a qualitative research? Will you be doing surveys? Will you be doing an experiment? Do you think you'll be doing a simulation? Do you think you want to combine a simulation and experiment? Very often, some professors will tell you to just stay with one because you've got limited time, and very often you may not be able to combine the two effectively depending on the nature of the course that you are applying to do. So those are some major sections of the PhD research document, research proposal document. The other key thing that Grace has just mentioned, is a problem statement. So problem statement is, this is what you are, it is just like a way of trying to say that you've gone through all of this, and this is the problem you want to solve. You want to define that problem in clear terms, and then you have it clearly stated for the person who is reading it. The person can very easily understand, what are you coming here to solve? What is the problem that's existing that you actually want to solve in this particular problem? Now, if there are softwares, if there are special requirements that you will have in your PhD research proposal, you will also need to identify them. In some instances, the template can vary. Some other kind of PhD research proposals might want you to talk about the possible challenges that may want to hinder you from that achieving that goal. If that is required in the school or in the country where you are applying for, you want to also capture that in your document. But the main goal of a research proposal is, you want to show your knowledge of the area. You want to see that you want to showcase that you are abreast with information in that area, the state of research in the area. You want to identify a problem. You want to identify a gap in knowledge that you're coming to fix. You want to also identify the main objectives, the main aim, and the sub-objectives of your research. You want to talk about the methodology of your research. How do you want to go about that research? How do you want to go through that? Some of the researchers would want you to or research proposals may want you to write, potential findings, but that's just you trying to repeat some of the things that you have already said, that this is going to do this, this is going to do this. Some would say include relevance of the research area. You want to talk about how solving that particular problem or meeting those objectives that you set out for yourself helps maybe humanity, helps one area of life or the other. I think in the PTDF model of research proposal, there is somewhere where you need to define you want to define the contribution of that research to the oil and gas industry. You want to define the contribution of that research to the economy of Nigeria, for instance. But these are case specific, things that happen on case by case specific basis. But in general, you want to address what we've just mentioned now, showcase your knowledge, identify a gap in knowledge, and then, of course, have a set of objectives and a general aim. And in addition to that, a clear methodology for your research or for your proposed research. Before that, of course, you've got an introduction section above, and you've also got a title that you are proposing, a proposed title for your research. You also have got your own maybe personal details, like who you are and how to reach you and all of those kind of things. But From the title to the introduction to the literature review to the aim and objectives to the methodology, then to maybe the contribution to science, your problem statements can actually be reframed around, depending on the model you are using. You may want to reframe that within the aim of the research, or on just above the aim of the research. This is the problem that's existing, and this is followed by this is the aim of this research I'm going now to do. And by the time you've been able to put this together, any professor seeing that in that particular institution you are interested in can actually decide to say, yes, I am the right person to supervise this research, or no, I'm not the right person to supervise this research, go to this person. Or the person may say, I know I can supervise this, but I cannot take on more students this year. And the person can then refer you to someone else, maybe his colleague, his friend in the same institution or in a different institution. But you need to get the approval of these supervisors before you can actually even launch out to apply for a PhD position or a PhD degree. Because every PhD student must have a supervisor from day one. Not even from day one of your resumption, from day one of your admission. You must have somebody, before you even get admitted, you need somebody who has accepted to supervise your research, or somebody who feels like he or she has got the right capacity to supervise your research. When you have that, then you can begin to apply for your scholarship. How do you get in contact with them? You want to use their emails. You want to also use, as I recommend always, you want to use LinkedIn as well to get across to these professors. If you're able to reach out to a professor on LinkedIn, that will actually, it will help a lot in warming up the relationship between yourself and the professor. And when you send out an email to that professor, you are more likely to get a response from the person. This is what you need to do, and this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. After that, the professor has gone through all of those, then that professor will invite you for an interview. That's the way it works. Now, in some scholarship applications for PhDs, you will go through an interview process with the supervisor, and then you will go through another interview process with the funding organization. And that was my case. When you apply for the PTDF scholarship, for instance, you have to get admission by yourself. And because you have to get admission into the school, you have to go through an interview process with a proposed supervisor. And then if you are going to do the PTDF interview, before you win the PTDF scholarship, you have to go through an interview process with the PTDF. So you are doing like two interviews in order to get that PhD that is desired. But of course, when you win the PhD, you will be grateful for all the interviews you've gone through, because you will be polished. And because PhDs are going to involve lots of, you'll be getting research output. You want to go to conferences, you want to go to events, you want to discuss the output of your research or the outcome, the findings of your research. You do very much need to polish up your speaking skills, to polish up your presentation skills, to polish up your interview skills, polish up your skills of responding to questions. You need to have all of these things properly sorted out. And talking about supervisors, how do you choose your potential supervisors as a PhD student? I will give you an example from my own self. At the point of trying to choose my supervisor, I had to do a couple of things. I had to first check that the supervisor has got good experience in the area I'm trying to go into. Pay very good attention to what I'm going to say now. This is like, I don't know, this information I'm going to pass now is worthy of a pay, but let me give it to us for free of charge, because this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. We share everything we know. We share things for free here, and the game is to help as many as possible, even though some of us do not help us to reach many people. If you help us share these videos, that's your way of contributing to our journey to helping people from developing countries. And some of the things we say here are actually relevant to even people from developed countries. We want to help as many people from developing countries, but in the process, we're also beginning to help people from developed countries of the world. Now, choosing choosing a research supervisor for your PhD, choosing a professor for choosing a research supervisor for your PhD. When you want to choose a professor who will supervise your PhD, or a doctor, or an associate professor who will supervise your PhD, there are a couple of things you want to check out. Number one, you want to check that the person has got the right competence. The right competence in terms of he knows the area you're going into, he understands that area, he has a very good network within that area. Now, in addition to having the competence, the knowledge in that area, I would encourage you to also check on the website of the school the research outputs of the supervisor. You want to check that the supervisor you are proposing to have, or you are intending to have, is someone who is well connected within the industry. If you are going into engineering, try to see that this supervisor has got some connection with the industry. This is not to say that the person has got 20 years experience working in a company from your field. Not really, but you want to see through the kind of research work the person has done. You can also, you can make an assessment of how connected this supervisor is with the industry. Is he getting, or is she getting, funded projects from the industry? Is he or she getting funded projects from the government? Some research will need somebody who is connected with policymakers, or somebody who is connected with policymakers, people who drive policies, because the more the person is connected and the more projects the person is getting from all of these organizations, from all of these companies, from all of these government agencies, the more or the richer your research experience under the person will be. And like I said, you can look through the person's research profile. You can ask questions from the person's existing or former students. You will be able to know, does this person get funded projects? If he does or she does get funded projects, that's a very good supervisor you want to stick around. If the person doesn't get funded projects and your aim is to move back to the industry after your studies, you may want to be careful. You may want to look again and try to see, will you get somebody else within your field who is able to supervise your research and has got that level of connection with the industry, that he or she is getting this kind of projects from the industry, because that's the way you make your research experience richer. You don't just want to go do a PhD and at the end of the PhD, the only research experience you've got is the research experience that led to your own PhD. That will be very tiny. That will be very narrow. But by the time you've participated in 2 or 3 research projects funded, they will actually put to test the research experience or the research, your capacity to do research that you've developed during your PhD, or you are developing alongside your PhD in the process of your PhD. If you have a supervisor who is able to get these things, they're going to help you in 2 ways. One is it increases your research experience, and the second part is it actually increases or boosts your CV and increases your chances of getting a job at the end of your PhD. You can quote me on this anywhere, anytime. The way you go about it is look at the person's research profile, ask questions about the person from the person's existing students. You will be able to make up your mind, on whether or not the person has got the right kind of atmosphere that you should be getting into. I know that many of us probably expected me to just come, drop links to, follow this link to apply for scholarship, follow the other link to apply for scholarship. That's very basic. That's not what you do in an academy. Here we teach. And here we try to explain the pitfalls and the things you need to actually, you need to set right within your, in your application, and the things you need to set right to be in a position of advantage long term. When I was coming to the UK, the professor that's supervising my project at the moment, I had to do a very good background research on him. I had to look at all the projects. I had to look at some of the projects he's been doing for the industry. I had to look at some of the works that he has been doing. I had to speak to about 3 students from this university before I came. I spoke to two persons from Nigeria. I think the other lady is from, is it Trinidad and Tobago? I think she's from Trinidad, from either Trinidad or Jamaica, somewhere around that region. But I had to speak to these people. The reason I had to speak with them is because I wanted to be sure that what I was saying on the university's website is the right thing. And in addition to this, the other thing you want to confirm about the supervisor you are going into his hands or her hands is the person's attitude to his students. You want to check graduation history. How often are students graduating from this particular supervisor? Does the person hold down everybody that comes through him? Does the person hold down every student that comes through her? Because there are supervisors who are just unnecessarily strict. I say unnecessarily strict. I don't want to use another word for it, but I think some people are just unusually very strict. Things that where you need to fill a certain gap in knowledge, the person wants you to fill like 2 gaps in knowledge or 3 gaps in knowledge. Where you are supposed to feel like 2 gaps in knowledge, the person wants you to feel like 4. There was this young person I met him and we're having a conversation. He said the person who supervised his master's degree wanted him to feel, I think, to do up to 3 different things in the master's degree thesis. And you can begin to imagine that this is a master's degree, not a PhD. It's not, he's not trying to become a professor at that point. He was just trying to get his master's degree, for crying out loud. So you want to focus on that. You want to get all of these things right. We've mentioned the person's competence. We've mentioned how well connected the person is to either the industry or well connected the person is outside of the academia. Let me put it that way. Because outside of the academia can be with companies, can be with policy makers, can be with anything. But how connected is this person outside of the academia, and how much of research projects is he or she getting from all of these, his connections from all of these outside sources. And in addition to that, you want to see how this person has been treating students in the past. What is the person's attitude to students? If you are talking to a particular supervisor and you are beginning to ask questions from students within that faculty and they are telling you, please reconsider your options, please, I think this person might not help you in this research, you want to very much pay attention to that conversation and you want to really reconsider. And as much as possible, don't go into the hands of any supervisor blindly as a PhD student. Do not. If you do the things we have said today, you will be very close to a PhD. Remember that if you go to Germany, PhDs are free in public institutions. If you go to Norway, PhDs are free in public institutions. If you go to Finland, if you go to Austria, if you go to Czech Republic and a couple of other countries, PhDs are free. If you go to Saudi Arabia to a school called KAUST, every study in KAUST is free. If you go to Skolkovo in Russia, everybody who studies in Skolkovo studies on scholarship. If you go to KAUST, every student in KAUST studies on scholarship. You may want to stretch out your search to some of these countries. And the school in Saudi Arabia that I just mentioned, KAUST, all the studies done there, to the best of my knowledge, are conducted in English. If you go to Skolkovo in Russia as well, every study I know of in Skolkovo is conducted in English language. And I know very much about Skolkovo because I did apply to Skolkovo sometime around, I think 2016. Then I was just, very close to my final days in my final year of stay in Russia. And these are schools that are really sound. They've got the right kind of equipment that will help your research. They've got faculties that are really sound. I know a faculty member in KAUST at the point I was considering the school that came all the way from Texas. He was a professor, I think, in University of Texas at Austin, one of the schools in Texas, a professor of chemical engineering, and he moved to Saudi Arabia and he was there. I know some other persons who moved, I think, from Germany, from Italy, they got some really very good faculty members in those institutions. So you want to consider all of these scholarships, and we've talked about documents, we've talked about the various types of scholarships. Now let's go through the questions while we have this interlude. If you have not shared this video, please help me to share it. It will help me, it will help the page, it will help all the people within your network. Beyond helping the page, it does help the people within your network. Please go ahead, hit that share button. And this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. Today we are reaching you from Aberdeen in Scotland, and we do this from time to time. If you see the notification button there, you will see like a bell somewhere around on the right hand, on the down right side of your screen. You will see like a bell. If you want to keep seeing this kind of videos and getting notifications whenever we are live, you want to hit that bell button there, and that lets Facebook, that's you giving Facebook authority to send you reminders and send you notifications whenever this page is live. And if you do that, you will be getting very useful information always. If you found anything useful from what I've said today, please drop a message in the comment section. Let me know your assessment of the session today, and let's know the questions that you have. I'll be looking through the comment section now for questions, and let's see. Somebody is saying drop the link to the public speaking video. Thanks. I will do that just after this session because I'll have to go to another page to grab it. Emily says interdisciplinary is way to go. Yes, I do agree with you. There are many scholarships that people can apply for, but they are not applying for them because they are not named according to the naming of their bachelor's degree or the naming of their master's degree. If you expand yourself to interdisciplinary opportunities, you will see more opportunities that you can apply for. You will see more offers that you can get. Problem statement, objectives, methodology. That is great. What just the main component that was missing in the response you provided, Grace, is the literature review, because that's very important. So you want to showcase that you know something. You want to showcase that you know what the state of research is. If you're online and you would like to join me live to ask a question, I will encourage you to just ask that question. You can request to join me live. I will accept, and you will be able to ask your question. Igwe is asking a question. Is there any website for this graduate assistantship? There is a website for graduates, or what's called in the UK is called studentship. And I've talked about our website before. It's called jobs.ac.uk. If you go to jobs.ac.uk right now, you will see so many studentships and so many scholarship opportunities for PhDs in the UK. You will see more than you can apply for. And I encourage you to head on to that website. If you also look at findphds.com, you will see so many scholarship opportunities there for PhD students than you can apply for. You will see more than you can apply for. Just go to that place and you will actually find a very good offers there. Then in addition to these specific websites, the websites of every university will have PhD, we have graduate assistantships listed under scholarships or listed under funding. You want to look at those websites and you want to apply for the ones that are relevant to the field you are trying to study. And in addition to that, we took time, so this was like the beginning of this year and sometime last year, we did a couple of videos that were dedicated to how you can use LinkedIn to actually win these graduate assistantship scholarships. The video on how you can use LinkedIn to win these opportunities or these scholarships you will find on our YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, then you do not have access to that video because the video is not on this Facebook page. It's just on the YouTube channel because of the length of the video and the structure of the video is best suitable for YouTube. And if you head on to our YouTube page now or channel after this video, you'll find that scholarship. You'll find that video is called use LinkedIn to win your next scholarship. You'll find it there. And it's one of our most popular videos on YouTube, and there is a reason why it's that popular. Head on to YouTube after this video, you will find it there. Let me see if there are any other questions. Any other questions in the comments? I seem not to be able to see anymore. Okay, let's have a look on this other device. Someone had asked earlier if everybody or if every country can let people bring, is it dependents? I can't find that question anymore. Where is it? You are doing a great job. Thank you, my brother. This is from a satisfied follower. I appreciate that. If you, someone else, I wanted to join the conversation, but I don't have enough data. So next time, sir. Anyways, that would be great. If you find time, this recording will still be live on this page. You'll be able to watch it after now. I'm joining from Nigeria. How do one get a graduate assistantship research? A graduate assistantship, you can get them from the website of any of these universities. And I would assume that Igwe has just started following us recently. So go through our video catalogs. You will see a video that's dedicated to how you can actually find these scholarships. I discussed it with the UK's example. And if you look at these videos, Networking 101, Networking 102, and Networking 103, these are 3 videos on this Facebook page that will change the game for you, whether you're looking for a scholarship or you're looking for a job. These things will change the game for you. There's no point going through over and over again all the time. You can find them on this right here on this page. Watch those 3 videos. Implement the things that you will see on the videos, and before the end of this year, you come back here with a different story. This is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. Somebody was asking if PhDs cover payments for the dependents or for the children of the person. It will depend. Not every PhD will cover for your dependents. I can't even seem to think of one in the UK that will cover for your dependents. What happens is that you'll be allowed to bring your dependents as a PhD student, but the cost of feeding those dependents and the cost of housing those dependents will be on you most times. But the way it's structured in most countries is if you have a fully funded PhD scholarship, or a fully funded scholarship for that matter, even at the master's degree level, they will give you an amount of money that's your stipend will be equal to an amount, or at least equal to the minimum amount that is required for you to be able to bring dependents. That's if you choose to apply for dependent visas for your people. Most of the scholarships I've seen are structured that way. There are some scholarships at PhD levels that will only cover your tuition and will not give you a stipend. In that case, you have to fend for your the way you survive, the way you feed, the way you house yourself, and all of that. But very often, I encourage people, except you've got some money, I encourage people to look for fully funded scholarships. Fully funded will cover the cost of your travels. Sometimes the one funding my scholarship cover the cost of my visa, cover the cost of my traveling to the UK, and at the end of my studies, it will cover the cost of me traveling back to my country if I choose to travel back. It also covers the cost of going to make presentations in conferences. So if I had if I find a conference that's of interest to me in Australia, I can write back to them, and I've got a manuscript accepted in that conference. I can write back to the funding body, and they will provide me funding to go to Australia and make that presentation. Of course, I will have to acknowledge them in everything that I do. When I write my papers for publications, I do acknowledge that this is the organization that's made funding available and made this research possible. But some other scholarships will cover stipend and tuition, but will not cover the cost of your visa and will not cover the cost of your traveling to the country. But all of these are dependent on the nature of the scholarship. They can vary. Some can cover back in the days, I know that coast in Saudi Arabia, if you were going to coast with a family, they will give you like an accommodation that should be sufficient to contain yourself and your family members. If you are going there as a single person, they will give you an accommodation that's for a single person. If you're going with just your wife, they'll give you a commensurate accommodation. If you're going with a wife and a child, or maybe a couple of children, they will give you an accommodation that should be able to accommodate that. Not many schools do that, and not many universities that I know of will do that. But let's face it, if you have a scholarship that will pay you, say, like £20,000, and you have a wife or a husband that can come over with you and be working full time while you're on the scholarship, you find that you will be making a lot of money in the end as a family, because you are getting your scholarship you are getting your scholarship stipend, and you are getting to work like 20 hours a week. For most countries where people do PhDs, you will have at least a minimum of 20 hours a week that you can use to do part-time jobs. And then your wife is working full-time, so it's like 3 different streams of income at a time, and that should be good enough to sustain yourself and your family, and then give you some savings in the pocket. If you go to a place like Lithuania, PhD students are able to work full-time, and the cost of studying in Lithuania is small. The cost of living in Lithuania is relatively small compared to some other places, from what I understand. So these are places you can also consider to go to. They are not the biggest name countries, but these are nice places to study, especially because they are also in the EU. And when you go to those kind of places, you are able to work longer. You may be able to make more money than somebody who is studying in some of the A-League countries, working 20 hours a week. And this is Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. I don't know if there are any other questions. If anybody wants to join me live to add voice to what I've just said, or to ask a question, I'll be glad to bring you on live. So you indicate that you want to join, and then I will accept it. There are a couple of persons still remaining on the line.